All right, here we are.
Back again.
I'm in Duluth in spirit only this time, so I'm going to be remote for about 5 weeks. But we'll give it our best shot, huh, Dave?
We'll check to see if this remote stuff actually works.
That's right.
Because Trump is trying to get rid of it, so let's see if it works.
Yeah, if we were U.S. government workers, we would be screwed.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
But at
All
least
right.
we'd get paid until August.
Yeah, if you took the buyout.
Yep.
And I'd heard that, 75,000 people did.
That's what I heard, yep.
And now it's closed. So the judge reaffirmed it, and then they closed it immediately after that. So, because they gave them a deadline of like a couple days ago. All right, well, we'll get to that, or we might not get to it, but we've talked about it already. So let's kind of follow our format. We're going to talk about health and fitness right now. So I've been traveling and I have not been able to do too much. I was able to do a couple workouts with weights and one run since we talked last. And I'm feeling it. I need to get out and run. I think I put on 10 pounds since I got here. I'm eating a lot of really good food, but I'm going to have to hire a trumpet player to follow me around pretty soon because I'm getting so big.
But you were outside, though. You could run outside, which is
I can run outside here. Yeah.
Which is a huge difference from, not being able to run whatsoever. So.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I think I mentioned this to you before. I ran my typical 3 miles outside on Saturday, and halfway through, I just wanted to lay down and cry. It's so different going on a treadmill than it is, running outside on hills and wind and, and heat. I mean, it's hot here.
Yes. Well, I got 3 days in since last week, and then Saturday I took the snowblower out and played with that for a couple hours, and so I don't know if that counts as exercise, but it is getting outside and moving around. So
it's definitely exercise.
I'm gonna still count it.
I would count it. I went out after our show on Thursday. I went home and blew the snow out of the driveway. That wasn't fun.
No.
But yeah, it's definitely exercise, even if you've got a snowblower when you get the heavier snow. All right. And then just a reminder for people to get out, move around, do your thing, be active. That doesn't mean running necessarily. It can mean walking. It can even be just getting up and sitting down or walking around your house a few times, depending on your health and your fitness level. But the more you can do, the better.
Yep.
The older you get, the more it pays off. I guarantee that.
Yeah, no matter how bad it feels, it's the way to go.
Yeah. Lately I've been dragging myself to go work out. Like it's the last thing I want to do, but I'm still forcing myself to do it. Because if you get out of a pattern, it's tough to get back into it.
Correct. Yep, absolutely.
All right. So I've got a section here in Duluth local news, but I thought I'd kind of dedicate this to what's happening at the state legislature, because now we've got actually representatives showing up to do their freaking jobs, which is kind of nice. The Democrats have decided to come back. We talked about that I think that just happened last Thursday. So they've only been in for a week now.
Correct. Yep.
So I went through and got a link to all of the bills that have been introduced. It's a pretty easy thing to find. All you have to do is go out to, you can actually just search for Minnesota House bills, and there's a page that just has it. You can get bills by topic, bills by author, and then co-author bills, and you can just see them. So I scanned for our Duluth representatives, Pete Johnson and Alicia Kozlowski, to see what they were, introducing. And it's only been a week, so, there shouldn't be too many, but there's actually a lot. Theoretically, they were working while they were not coming into work, so that might account for it. Let's see. I'm going to go through a couple of these and we'll just talk about them. So I wanted to split them up into good, questionable, and that just means I kind of don't understand it. We should talk about it. And then ones that I'm really wondering, why are you doing this? So I'm going to start with the good because let's go on a positive note. There's one that's introduced by Davids and Johnson co-authored it. It's HF0702. Nursing facility property rate increases sunset and increases removed. Now, this is one I was kind of confused when I read the documentation on it because it looks like they're taking away the sunset, which would imply that the increases don't go away. And then it looks like they're also increasing stuff, but the definition says the increases are removed. So I'm hoping I'm just reading it wrong. And what I've been doing, though, let me just see if I can share this out. So I'm going to try to share. Let's see. So what I do is I will go into ChatGPT and I will go first and go to the bill and get the description of the bill and this is just a copy paste of the bill in the ChatGPT. And then you can come in and just say, summarize this. And it will come through and it will lay out exactly what the bill says. And then you can ask it questions too. Now, there may be some bias to the way they've been training these AI sessions, but summarization is pretty good. And your job really is to read the bill itself. So it looks like here, if you look at the reading of the actual text of the bill, it talks about certain property tax increases. Some of the sunsetting will end. And so I just did a summarization and it talks about the subject fact, removal of the sunset. So this removes the sunset provision, which is not necessarily good unless they do things like decreasing or getting rid of the tax altogether right away without having to worry about the sunset. This is the one thing I don't understand, though. It says rate increases for specific facilities. And there's going to be an increase for the following 3 facilities. And that's where I don't understand it. I don't know why we're getting rid of some tax rate increases, but these 3 are being targeted for an increase.
Yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
So the nice thing about ChatGPT is you could say, summarize for a 12-year-old. And it says, it's saying that some are getting more money starting January 1st. And it's the 3 that are listed. You can see my confusion because it says increase property rate. So maybe the property rate means the money they're getting. So this comes down to me not understanding how to read these things. But based on this, based on the name of the bill, it sure seems like, it's a good thing.
Well, it seems like they're doing kind of both. Is they're sunsetting the property tax, yet they're giving an increase to pay for the increased property taxes.
Mm-hmm.
So if you listen to the news about the schools having problems, that's what's called an unfunded mandate. Mm-hmm. And that's the difference: funded mandates versus unfunded mandates.
Yeah. And there's a ton of unfunded mandates that came through in their gluttonous spending bills they did the last 2 years.
Yeah.
That's killing the school districts right now and nursing homes too. And I was at a nursing home when we were doing one of our forums, and these guys are understaffed to begin with and then squeezed for money. And so trying to find people to work there, trying to pay them enough and trying to keep up with all the mandates that are being imposed. And not all the mandates are being imposed. I'm not saying they're all sinisterly put in place. It's not like they want to punish these people, but unfortunately, when you get people that don't know how to run a business or don't know what it takes to run a business, these mandates they put in place that they think are so altruistic are just killing these businesses.
Correct. Yeah, because even on the news last night, they were talking about childcare, and the lady involved was talking about unfunded mandates and regulations are killing her business.
Mm-hmm.
So there might be another childcare place that's going to go out of business because, uh, the government needs their money.
Right. My understanding too is that in the last couple of years there was, the private healthcare or private childcare where people are just kind of taking care of one or two kids at their house. They decided they hadn't been regulated enough, so they took all the regulations that were for the big childcare facilities and just dumped them on the people that had their houses for daycare.
Yeah,
And so what happened? A bunch of them just quit because they can't keep up with that. And they can't accept the penalty. You get penalized pretty big if you break any of these mandates.
absolutely.
Let me go through another one. HF0333. This is Pete Johnson. Lot D redevelopment project funding provided and bonds issued. I think it was a $10 million bond of money that's being appropriated to it. I consider this a good thing because Lot D is something that needs to be improved. It'll help City of Duluth. It's all around a good thing, and right now it's not a property that's really useful.
What do they mean by Lot B?
Lot D. So where
D.
Pier B is, it's just
Yeah.
it's just down in that area. It's just A, B, C, D, and now it's down in that area.
Okay.
So that's Pete Johnson, West Duluth. Kozlowski for East Duluth, HF0427, Duluth International Airport capital improvements funding provided, bonded, issued, and money appropriated. So improvements to the Duluth International Airport, probably a good thing, probably needed. I got no problem with that. HF0573, St. Louis County Canyon Integrated Solid Waste Management Campus funding provided, bonds issued. That was by Warwas, who is representative up, I think, in the Ely area. And I think Kozlowski co-signed on that. And probably Johnson did too. I don't know off the top of my head. And then
none of these were chief. They never chief sponsored anything. It's all co-authors. So they're not leading the charge on this. They're signing their names to it, according to the internet.
The really good ones, they're co-sponsoring, but the Duluth International Airport one, that's a Kozlowski funded or a sponsored one or authored one. Okay, and then the Lot D is Johnson's.
Because Stauber and Klobuchar had already got money for to rebuild the Duluth Airport the tower.
Oh,
the
good.
Control tower. And I don't know if we'd have to do more digging to find out if that's still if that's the same project or it's a different project.
Yeah, I think this is different, but yeah, we'll have to check it out. One more that I looked at that I thought was really good, water HF0724, Water Infrastructure Funding Program provisions modified, bond issued, funding provided for clean water and money appropriated. That's Scraba did that one. So Juarez, that's Cal. I'm sorry, he's up north, and Scraba is up in Ely. He's that area. So, and they're tied to these as co-authors or primary authors. Good bills. I think that's good stuff that looks good for us as a city and as a state. Let me move on to the ones that I kind of have scratching my head about. This is Kozlowski authored. HF0442, St. Louis County refundable sales and use tax exemption provided for construction materials used in certain housing development projects. So when I read about this, it's basically a 2-year refund on property sales tax or for materials used to build higher volume housing like apartment buildings and other condos and stuff like that are big or more than 20 people.
Yeah,
I get it. I get the impetus to increase the construction of those kind of material or buildings. I'm not sure why we have to exempt them from sales tax when we're struggling so hard right now to pay for things like our schools. I guess the sales and use tax aren't used for that. That's local property taxes, but still, if they had a way to fund this, or if we had extra money in the budget, not a $5 billion deficit coming up, I could maybe see it a little bit. But maybe it's not the time for us to be paddling this along when we don't have the money in the bank anymore. Now, if you'd have done this last year, I could see it because we had $17 billion surplus,
Right.
flush with cash. But they found a way to spend that, so it's kind of tough for me to see a complete tax exemption. Maybe a reduction, but not exemption.
Well, I mean, that's part of the problem is I'm sure, you're building housing for people, which is a problem as it is. Duluth has a housing problem, yet there's, cities demanding their cut to it. So, now they get, they're basically taking 6.5% off, which is a drop in the bucket,
Yeah.
for an overall project.
This isn't even just Duluth. This is St. Louis County.
Yeah. So, I mean, how
And
many in St. Louis County? How many large apartment buildings that are even going to be there?
right.
So
And
they're giving their friends up on Incline Village, a tax break basically.
well, the other thing is, this is our Duluth representative. This has been 1 week in, and we already have a St. Louis County refundable sales and tax. Don't we have bigger things to do in Duluth? Don't we have some stuff that we should be getting done for us first before we start looking at a county level? I
Yeah.
know this is a state representative and everything, but it just seems really specific, and it is her intention to put high density housing everywhere and just pack us full, which I completely disagree with. I think it's a bad way to do it, but
Correct.
this falls in line with what she's done before. The next two, boy, they sure seem like they're really helping somebody out in particular, and I don't want to mention their name, but property tax exemption modified for certain airport property, HF0443, and HF0444, income tax credit proposed for graduates of aerospace and aviation related educational programs, employers of program graduates, and reports required. I can't think of who that might benefit, or
Right.
it might be interesting to see who donated to which candidates this last cycle and see what they could be going to. I don't have any idea. Maybe it's Costco. I'm not sure.
Right. I mean, we got, and since, but businesses cannot, corporations cannot donate to certain organizations, so you'd have to break it down into
Well, that's
or
right.
political. So we could check anybody's campaign notices that are public, and it's not going to say anything because these corporations cannot donate to House representatives.
That's true. Well, I mean, it sure is set up that if you own an airline or something that has to do with airlines, you're sure making off pretty good with tax exemptions again. And
Yeah.
once again, how do we pay for this? What are we losing because of it? Do we just turn the screws on the population some more? For a party that's so against businesses getting welfare, this sure seems like corporate welfare to me. And both of our representatives in Duluth are signing on to that. I'm sorry, both our Democrat representatives are signing on to that.
Our Duluth News Tribune Democrat endorsed candidates.
That's right. I'm sorry. You're absolutely right. I said I was going to say that. Our Duluth
Yep.
News Tribune endorsed candidates, and representatives voted for that. So those are I don't know if they're good. I don't know if they're bad. I'd have to know more about it. I don't know why they're popped in the first week when we've got, people like Natalie Zalesnikar doing things like anti-fraud and trying to help nursing homes and trying to help out some organizations. And I will dig into some of hers too. I want to see what she's been doing because I've gotten some flavor of it, and it's all about fraud,
Right.
tightening things up, making things better, getting rid of some of these crazy taxes that were put in place last year. Now I'm going to go to I'm not sure we need that. HF 01161. funding provided to expand arts programming that celebrates Latino cultural heritage and money appropriated. Now, I'm not saying it's because Latino, so I don't want people to think I'm against Latino people. If you said funding to provided to expand arts programming that celebrates Finnish cultural heritage and money appropriated, I'd be saying the same thing. We don't need that. That's not a priority for us as a city, as a state. It's not where we should be spending our money. And if you want to expand programming that celebrates any particular culture, that's fine with me. Find people that will donate to it and do it themselves instead of mandating that we, as taxpayers, pay for it.
Correct.
Kind of on the same page as that, which has the same author, which is Perez Vega, Minnesota Latino Museum funding provided, bonds issued and money appropriated. Again, why do we need a Latino museum in Minnesota? Why do we need a Polish museum in Minnesota? Why do we need a Scandinavian museum in Minnesota? We don't. And we certainly don't need to fund it.
Correct. It's not the taxpayers' priorities to do that. We have other priorities. Yeah. That's not one of them.
I don't even call this a priority. This is nonsensical for us to pay for.
Correct.
Again, this is something, if it's a great idea and you get a lot of support for it, go get the funding from people that think it's a good idea and do it yourself. Stop taking our money and acting like it's your plaything. It's like a little kid with a credit card going around just buying whatever they want. They're getting their Star Wars play set. Well, we don't need it and we shouldn't be paying for it. And then then let us decide where we spend our money, right? If I have extra money after the end of the day, then maybe I'll support it. Maybe I won't. But let you make a decision and let you hold on to your money so you can pay for other things you want.
Correct.
HF 0264, improve medical care and licensed correctional facilities provided. Now, I don't think you should be treated poorly if you're in the correctional facility, but this is one of those things where I'm not looking at it as the first thing I'd be going after. But
low priority.
True to the Democratic form, it seems like they are more interested in taking care of criminals than they are about the population that pays for it and that are getting preyed on. And here's the one. I don't disagree with this one. I also don't understand the need for it, and I'd like to find out the impetus behind that. So HF 0037, free, fair, and equal elections provided and constitutional amendment proposed. And I'm not sure what the problem is that they're trying to fix. Do we not have free, fair elections? It says something about the government won't get in the way. I just don't understand where this came from and what it's needed for. So I would like to spend more time looking at this.
Are they trying to straighten out the problem that was associated down in Shakopee when 20 ballots went missing? Are they talking about the Roseville election where the Democrat didn't actually live even close to where he said he was running for, and now that caused all the problems in the House?
That is a really good question.
Or is it trying to address the problem with the Democrat who robbed her ex-mother-in-law's house?
That's true.
3.5 hours away.
That would be nice to get figured out. Yeah, which Democrat problem are you trying to fix? Hang on one second. I'm going to drop this into ChatGPT and see what it says. Let's summarize this, and I will share it. If I can find which one it is. Okay, so the thing says, proposed an amendment to the Minnesota Constitution providing for free, fair, and equal elections. Constitutional amendment proposed.
Oh.
Elections shall be free, fair, and equal. No civil or military power shall at any time interfere with the free exercise of the right to vote. And then it just basically says it will be proposed to the Minnesota people. Voters will be asked, shall the Minnesota Constitution be amended to provide free, fair, and equal elections and prohibit civil and military powers from interfering with the right to vote? Yes or no? This amendment aims to strengthen the democratic process in Minnesota by protecting the integrity of elections and ensuring that all citizens' right to vote is secure and free from interference. Do you know why we need this?
Well, they want to put it they want to put it into the Constitution instead of just making it a rule.
Right,
or a law.
but what part of it is, so is this a problem? What is the military or civil power that can interfere with a free election? What is considered a free exercise of the right to vote? And why do we need this? What is driving this bill forward?
The only civil thing that I could see would be the January 6th.
Oh, here it is. Okay. Historically, various forms of voter suppression have existed in the United States, from restricted voter ID laws.
Oh,
Okay.
they're trying to make it a constitutional, instead of just a rule that you can't have voter ID. So anybody from anywhere can just show up and vote.
Wow.
That's what the Democrats are trying to do on that one.
So they're trying to, so if this is a Democrat sponsored bill, my thought is they want illegal aliens to vote and they don't want anybody to say no.
Correct. Yeah.
That makes more sense now that I see the restrictive voter ID laws.
Yeah. Yeah. Once you put in voter ID, where you have to prove you're a state person from the state, so they could actually, you don't have to be a member even of the state to vote in Minnesota.
Oh
I
God.
think the last election was too close for them, for the Democrats.
Yes. They see
and
the
they need
writing
to
on the
bring in
wall.
more Democrat voters. This way
Yeah.
they can do it.
So I'm gonna. Do you have anything else? Do you want to talk about anything else about the bills? Did you see any that piqued your interest?
Well, the one that piqued my interest was actually from the Duluth City Council. They're spending $60,000 on ebooks, and that got run through. Yet there's no explanation of who's going to get it, why they need it, where it's going, I can find out where it's coming from, but I can't tell where, what it's used for.
Right. Yeah. I know you sent me a link, and I looked around for it. I have no idea what that is used for.
So it's
That's a
along
lot of
the
money.
same line as they proportion money without anybody knowing exactly what it's for.
Right. Yeah, it'd be interesting to find out more. I'd have to go to the city council meetings that I did not attend the last two, so I'll have to read up on that. Maybe it'll make sense, but it sure is a lot of money for reading material that's electronic.
Correct. And it's supposed to be public information show, so I shouldn't have to show up to the city council meeting. It should be online in the meeting notes.
Did you read the minutes?
Yeah, and it didn't say anything.
It said unanimously elected, unanimously approved. Every one of them. It had no notes whatsoever in it.
Yeah.
It was horrible.
So that one I would really question, and we need Elon Musk to come in and ask some questions on that one.
We can do it ourselves. We don't need Musk. But if Musk decided to come, I wouldn't say no.
Correct. Yeah.
We can't rely on these guys to do all our work for us. Got to kind of take charge and do it ourselves. I want to bring up another thing here. Let me show this. This is something we talked about in the campaign. And I'm just trying to find out which one of my browsers this is. Okay. So we talked a little bit about this rail system they're going to put in between Minneapolis and Duluth,
Yeah.
and how it's $1 billion, and they're just starting off, and people think this is a lot of people think this is the greatest thing, which I have problems with having people being able to get here from Minneapolis in high speed anyway. But this talks about the California one, and you can see that it is 130 billion. It's about twice. I think it's 171 miles are under active construction and already created. I think it's a total of like 350 miles.
Something like that. Yep.
Originally greenlit for a mere 33 billion. It has ballooned to 128 to 130 billion. And this is really on track for everything I've seen for every high rail system, is that it not only comes in way over budget, it comes in astoundingly over budget.
How can they be so far off?
Because there are a couple things that cause this, because they run into, like, it's Minnesota, so they're going to run into some burial sites of something, or they run into a union problem or something. Now, Duluth, this rail they want to do from Minneapolis to Duluth won't have any of those problems because it's already built. We're just taking some company's pre-existing rail and fixing it all for them.
Correct.
So we're not going to run into half the problems that this thing has, but I can almost guarantee I will be astounded if it comes in less than $2 billion. And I'm guessing it's going to be like 6 or 7 or 8 billion when it's done.
Yeah, but according to the Duluth people that are working on it, they only need $190 million. They don't need $1 billion. They just need $190 million to complete that project.
Well, that's the Minnesota side of it, but they are relying on 800 million from the federal government.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know, but there's a deadline approaching. I don't know if they passed it or not, but if they don't get that deadline, they're not going to get that money, and then this thing is going to go either down or it's going to go back for appropriations. And I think they may have a problem getting the Trump administration to fund this project.
I believe that, because there's not enough. You're not there's not enough people to ride it.
Right.
So they're gonna look at it, especially with the way they're trying to cut costs right now. The Blotnick Bridge will get done because that's normal infrastructure, but the rail from the cities to Duluth won't happen.
Yeah, I
And
don't
that'll
think
be
so.
a good thing. That's money well saved.
Right. And we don't need it, right? We don't
Correct.
need it. It's not essential yet. Build it when you need it, when it makes sense. And if a business won't touch it, then the government shouldn't be doing it, because the businesses would do this if it was a money-making thing.
Correct.
This would not only cost us a lot of money to build, but just like the light rail down in Minneapolis, it'll be a constant suck of money down. So we're going to be funding people to feel good about themselves and spending extra money on it all the time, just bleeding us more and more for it.
Right.
And I think they really overestimate the amount of people that would take it and the benefits going to have. So the question I have is, when you get to Minneapolis, then what? How do you get around?
Right.
Where are you going to go? You're going to go, what, to the Mall of America? Downtown St. Paul, downtown Minneapolis, maybe? Then what? If you have to go anywhere, you have to rent a car. Where are you going to do that? And then aren't you just causing more congestion there? So, and that costs you a lot.
Yeah, and same with Duluth. Then, so you get downtown Duluth at the depot.
To the depot, yeah.
Then what?
Right.
Do you have to pay more money for an Uber to get somewhere else?
Yep.
You're going to do that on a daily if you're working at one place and living in the other place? No.
Yeah. Right.
totally inconvenient because they're already claiming it's going to take longer than driving a vehicle.
Yeah, it'll cost more.
Yeah.
So besides costing more and taking longer, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Oh, and I won't have the convenience of having my car either. Yeah.
Right.
So we'll keep watching this, but I really don't think the light rail from Minneapolis to Duluth is a good idea.
No.
I think it's going to make us. We are going to be prey for the people that in Minneapolis, when I lived down there in the summertime, guys from Chicago, guys from Detroit came to prey on Minneapolis, and it was all you'd see is Tigers hats and Detroit Lions hats and Chicago hats, and they were all, they were on the street corners selling drugs.
Correct.
And making Duluth a very easy target to get to is just not a good idea. I will stand behind that to anybody who thinks that it's a great idea to have an influx of people from Minneapolis coming into Duluth.
And I used to work at a place, and what I found out after the fact was a lot of them were, if they were homeless, they would jump on the train in winter,
right,
and just go to sleep.
Yep.
That was their home. So they were basically homeless, and then it turned into a house to them because it had heat to it.
With indoor plumbing.
Correct. So
all right, let's move on. Let's talk about some confirmations, because I teased that in our image at the beginning of this. So the two notable people that have been confirmed in the last couple of days, Tulsi Gabbard and RFK. And I have a feeling that RFK is going to do some really good work about getting people healthy again. And that is his big thing. So he would be Health and Human Services Secretary, and Tulsi Gabbard, where is she? Director of National Intelligence. I don't know much about Tulsi. I have high hopes for her. I know that she had been a Democrat. She was in the military. She seems to be pretty common sense. We'll see what she does. I hope she does a good job. So TBD.
Yeah, and I've been reading up on RFK Jr. a little bit about some of his thoughts, and he was talking about a lot of the foods that are in the United States are not in Europe because of some of the food dyes.
Right.
And some of the food dyes, like red dye number 2 or 3, has some medical issues attached to it. That's why Europe banned it a long time ago.
Right.
So they said if you go over to Europe, your Fruit Loops aren't going to be the same color as American Fruit Loops.
Right. Yeah, because they have to use natural food flavoring or dyes, not dyes, but natural coloring, like beet juice and stuff like that.
Yeah, so it's going to be a lot healthier. So, if we can take some of these stuff that some daily staples that are not healthy and make them, decently healthy, it's not going to be, obviously, it's not going to be a perfect situation, but at least that they're going to start in the process of making people feel better.
Right. It seemed like when I was a kid, it seemed like people were like really wanting us to be healthy, and there was a big push on athletics and getting out and being healthy and getting running, eating right. I mean, there was a real big effort on this health kick all through the 80s and stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened, but it sure seems like they just want us fat and sick now. It's like they get rid of everything that would make us healthy and promote all the stuff that would make us drunk, fat, stoned, overweight, not thinking straight, and dependent on drugs. So I look forward to a health and human services guy who's actually looking out for us. That's the one thing I've I've liked about the whole Trump administration is it sure seems like this is an administration that's looking out for us for a change. It's like we always seem to be the back seat. We never come first for these other politicians. It's almost like, you're with somebody that wants to be with somebody else and they're just with you while they're looking around for somebody better. That's what I feel with the Democrats, especially at the federal level.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's see. Tina Smith. She took over for, what's his name?
Franken.
Al Franken. God, what a mistake that was. So Tina Smith has now decided she will not run again. So we have an opportunity in Minnesota to have a less embarrassing. She's a senator?
Correct. Yep.
A less embarrassing senator.
She's on equal level with Amy Klobuchar. So her and Klobuchar are our state Senate representatives. And she did release a editorial about why she's no longer going to be doing that, and it's because of personal reasons. She wants to spend more time with the family, stuff like that. So it's it might be, something that's good for Minnesota. It's hard to say right now, but if you're watching any of the federal stuff, you'll notice that Mitch McConnell and now another Democrat publicly just completely froze in front of the microphone, where they couldn't handle what was going on.
Cocaine Mitch, he can't talk. Yeah, he's done.
Yeah. So Tina's starting to get up into that range, but let's have her step aside prior to becoming a zombie, non-speaking zombie in real life.
Well, I kind of glitched out there for a minute, so I was gone. I didn't hear all the stuff you said, but didn't she just vote against the Lake and Riley Act too?
Yes. As a true Democrat, she wants the criminals to stay in America.
No kidding. So with that, we're going to switch all the way to national news here.
Yeah.
And I'm going to bring a video up here. Hopefully it doesn't kill my system. And it's going to be talking about, you remember that Border Patrol agent that was killed?
Yes, I remember. Yep.
Yeah, it's hard to remember because nobody talks about it anymore. And we're going to come to a section of, and I'm going to start keeping track of things nobody talks about very long.
Well, it's one of those. It's one of those. If you don't like the shooter, or if the shooter's in a certain group, then you can't talk about it.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And that's what the video you're gonna pop up basically shows. It's one of the protected groups, therefore we can't talk about it.
Right. So here, let's listen to Andy. I don't know how to say his last name. Neo, I think it is, but I'm butchered it, I'm sure.
After the shooting death of the U.S. Border Patrol agent in Vermont that opened up all the links to a trans terror cult and its alleged killings across the U.S. prior. I can now say that the FBI seems to be taking the case much more seriously. I can exclusively report that on the 5th of February, there was a very big raid in Chatham County, North Carolina, which is the Chapel Hill area, on a neighborhood in a neighboring wooded forest area. This raid had about over 50 FBI agents plus local sheriff's deputies. The local media reporting mentioned that these agents showed up and that the neighbors were very scared, but they didn't say why.
But it was loud.
Candace Welch says she woke up to the sound of a bang, followed by a large federal presence in this Chatham County neighborhood off of Highway 15501 near Chapel Hill. Chopper 11 shows authorities walking through the woods in the area with the Chatham County Sheriff's Office assisting, searching for an item Welch says authorities didn't specify.
Well, I know why. This is the area where members of the so-called ZIZ trans terror group had been living just before they made their way up to Vermont and were allegedly involved in the shootout that killed the border agent. As I previously reported, Felix Ophelia Balkholt and Teresa Milo Youngblood had been living there. I also reported that in the properties that they rented were several other members of this group. This is exclusive to my reporting. One of those members is Jack Z's Lesota, the leader of the group who we were told died in 2022, but has been seen multiple times since, has been arrested since, and has had his bail lowered from $500,000 in Pennsylvania when he was arrested in 2023 to $10,000, which he promptly bailed out and disappeared.
Can you believe that?
Yeah.
They just let him out. Just go ahead. And he pretended to die, came back, and there's absolutely no coverage on this. Man lost his life trying to protect the border, and just nothing. Because it's a trans cult and they're protected.
Yeah, it's sad that you look at all the school shootings and all the major shootings in 2024, and 90% of them were done by trans people.
Really?
Yeah, the school shooting in Tennessee, that was a trans female. Normally females don't do mass shootings, but she busted into the school with two rifles and started shooting, and
That's
but
crazy.
that didn't get much news play because in her manifesto, it showed she was trans.
Right. And then they didn't release her manifesto.
No, parts of it got released when somebody wasn't supposed to do it, but basically, we can't keep protecting any protected group. We need to be honest and get the correct information out there.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I'm going to do one more. I put the Minnesota thing in the wrong order here, so I want to go back to one more thing from that. So let's see this. Make it fancy and call it Minnesota State News again. There's a Republican PAN called Make Minnesota Safe, and it's opposed by the Democrats in committee. And this was something that you sent me, Dave. So you want to talk about it?
I'm still looking into it, so I don't have a ton of information. But I thought it was interesting that anytime there's the GOP sets forward a plan to make things safer, and I did read that the police department and the state police are all behind this. But every time you're trying to make the state safer, the Democrats seem to be against it.
Isn't that amazing?
And I don't really understand that side of it.
There was one thing I read in here that I was questioning, but if you look at it, it's brought forth by Paul Navanti. Oh, I'm sure I butchered his name too. And it talks about 10-year mandatory minimum sentences for those convicted of first-degree sex trafficking, allow police to attach tracking devices to cars reported stolen by the owner at any time, require individuals to register as predatory offenders if they receive state sentences of sex offenders cases, and establish new criminal offenses for blocking highways and freeways. I can get behind all those. The one I don't know about is allowing police to attach a tracking device. I just don't know how that works, how they would do that. As long as it's something that's been reported stolen, that's a different thing. If you're just allowing them to attach tracking devices on anybody's car, that's a problem for me.
Well, there's new technology out that can be placed on the front of a police car. So what it does is, if they start getting into a chase with somebody, they can fire this little rocket out of the front of their police car, and it's like a suction cup, and it sticks on the back of the car that's trying to leave.
Mm-hmm.
So then they don't have to chase it.
I've seen that in a Batman movie.
Correct. And that's basically what it is you can fire the projectile, and it has tracking on it. So then now everyone can track where the car goes without actually, and which would stop high-speed chases basically in their tracks.
Yeah, so it looks like it's specific to cars reported stolen. So that would be good. I can see that. It also is increased criminal penalties for those who flee from a police officer in a reckless manner. So that's open to interpretation, actually.
Right.
Assault a police officer, that's up for interpretation. Or conspire to damage critical infrastructure. Now that's conspiracy. I think that's already in the books, but it's good, I guess. And then if you go down here into this thing, it talks a little bit about people who testified against it. Democrats were concerned the provisions on vehicle tracking would infringe on the constitutional prohibition on warrantless search and seizures. I'm not sure if that tracks to me. If you want to say it's a violation of your personal data, or what am I thinking here? It's your right to privacy. I could see that. I don't see how it's warrantless searches and seizures. You're not seizing anything. You're not searching anything. But you are infringing on somebody's right to privacy or where they're going. But if it's a stolen car, you don't have that right.
Yeah, and if the police officer turns his lights on and you take off, you're a criminal. Therefore, they can track your vehicle.
Do you want to know how I know this is BS, that the Democrats are against it? They expressed concerns that portions of the bill duplicated current law and that fiscal costs associated with the bill are not yet known. The only time you'll see a Democrat talk about fiscal costs is when they have nothing else to throw at it.
Correct.
After last year's Minnesota State House budget, they have no ground to stand on to talk about fiscal costs about anything.
Right. And then did you notice that they in that same omnibus bill, they banned your Second Amendment rights with the ban of the trigger locks, or not the trigger locks, but having to make a gun shoot faster.
Oh, I thought they threw that out.
No, it was
already
in the omnibus bill that no one was able to read, and they shoved through. So there's a lot of lawsuits that just came out on that because you couldn't read it, and they just shoved it through. So there's a lot of things in there. They don't care. They're just going to. That's how they got it through.
Yeah, and check this out. So Kelly Moore, DFL Show Reviews, crime is decreasing, and the bill is based on incorrect assumptions and incorrect data. How can she say crime is decreasing just because it's not being reported, or just because it's not being prosecuted?
Yes, and that's how you lie with statistics.
Right. Mueller said criminal penalties have increased in recent years. Penalties for assaults on law enforcement were recently increased by the DFL. And public safety requires a more comprehensive approach than simply increasing penalties. But her counter proposal, don't do anything.
Right.
I got to keep my voters on the streets. And then we got this other guy, Brian Curran, if we're talking about criminal consequences as a way of deterring crime, I would just point out that perhaps criminal consequences for people who stole land and put pipelines through it maybe should have had consequences for that. So here's how you can take a subject that's completely unrelated and just cram it in there as hard as you can. These guys are great. So I thought that was worth bringing. I really thanks for bringing that to my attention. That was something I had not seen before. Yeah, and the funny thing is, if you look up Make Minnesota Safe Bill, that was something that Waltz proposed with the same name like a year or two ago, and it was all about disarming all the citizens of the state.
Yeah, so they threw that one thing in the omnibus bill. So what else is in there that we don't know about that we going to find out is going to start next year?
Oh God, it's starting this year, I think.
Yeah. So what did they, what have they put in there that they're not telling us?
Right. Let's see. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just checking to see what's left on our list.
I want to talk about, I'm going to skip around just a little bit. I want to talk about the USAID. And Cynthia Winderspan, an American attorney and politician serving as a junior United States Senator from Wyoming, listed out some of the things that they spent money on. They spent our money on for other countries. And I'm just going to lay it out because she said it all. I just wrote it down. $4.5 million to combat disinformation in Kazakhstan. And I said this in a forum. I'll say it again. Disinformation is sometimes a point of view. And the way to combat disinformation is to put information out that can be backed up. And sooner or later, the lies will fail and the truth will come through. But why are we going into Kazakhstan and trying to fix disinformation? $20 million for a Sesame Street show in Iraq.
Right.
$20 million. $25 million for Deloitte to promote green transportation in the country of Georgia. So somehow we have $20 million to spend in another whole other country for green transportation. $8 million to teach Sri Lanka journalists to avoid binary gendered language. What a waste of money. $5 million to Eco Health Alliance, a key NGO that's a non-government organization that does bat virus research at the Wuhan lab. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't there a problem a few years ago at the Wuhan lab for bats?
Yeah, that kind of caused a big headache for people.
There was $20 million to a group that was related with the Russiagate impeachment hoax. $1.5 million to rebuild the Cuban media ecosystem. I'm not even sure what that is, and I don't know why we're giving money to Cuba. And then $1.5 million to do DEI training in Serbia. Jeez. Lou. I mean, come on, guys. And, and as they're pointing out this stuff, people are defending it. That's the best part. They're defending it. The people that got the money for the NGOs are defending it. And you know what? A non-government organization that can't get by without government funding isn't a non-government organization. It's just not regulated by the government.
Correct.
I've
seen a lot of money given to South Africa. I've seen $1 million plus given to a play in Ireland.
Oh yeah, I saw that one too.
It's like, you guys can have it by yourself. We don't need to. The U.S. doesn't need to have their fingers into everything.
And I don't even care what the play is about. It doesn't matter at all. Even if it's like, the most American play ever, it doesn't need to be funded by us. Let's see. Go ahead.
Yeah, if it's worthwhile, someone will do it. Some business will take over and make money at it.
Or they
you don't
won't.
need the state to, yeah, or they won't, or they fail miserably at, because technically it didn't need to be done in the first place.
Right. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to kind of get to the end here pretty soon. I'll go back to national. I want to talk about this narrative that I've been seeing lately. And it's most of the Republicans I know have come to their senses. And let me see if I can share this out. I have so many windows open now, it's hard for me to find which one to share. No.
I think the main thing we can comes out of this Elon Musk is, why are we spending the money, and why are the Democrats so against all this wasteful spending?
Cutting the wasteful spending, yeah.
Yeah, why are we? So then, let's go back. Pre-Trump, when did U.S. aid start, and who was ultimately responsible for starting to throw away all our tax money?
Yeah, and I think it started during the Kennedy administration, during the Cold War, where we were in a propaganda war with Russia. And so I can see where some of this stuff, was around back in the 60s and 70s and even the 80s, because we were fighting that propaganda war with other countries. But Russia fell. We don't have the same war. This place should have been dropped a long time ago.
Correct.
And they should reinstitute the law that Obama took away, that says you can't do propaganda against the American citizens. The U.S. government can't do propaganda against American citizens. And Obama had that law taken away. But let me talk about this narrative I keep hearing about. I won't share it. I'll just talk about it. I keep seeing these things that are saying, yeah, Republicans, you're really hating now that Trump is doing this. I hear so many people saying, I voted him in and now this guy's killing us and he's destroying it. I don't know anybody who's a conservative that's upset with anything that's being done. In fact, they're giddy. Right. The amount of stuff that's happened in the last 3 weeks is amazing. And like I said earlier in the show, I'm pretty happy that we have a president now that seems to be, caring about us and wanting us to do better as opposed to every other country in the world.
Correct. Yeah, he's finally, one of the government's biggest problems since I was born was the wasteful spending. Right. And now we finally have someone doing something about the wasteful spending. And then we have a whole political party that's against it.
Yes. Yeah. It's, why are you against this spending cuts? They can't give a good answer. They just lament about, there's poor people that aren't going to get their money. They have no justification for it.
Correct.
Especially since most of that money, if not all of that money, is going to countries that aren't the United States. Yeah, so in the Department of Education, that wasn't around until 1979. People act like this has been in place since the Romans were around. Right. Department of Education was started by Jimmy Carter in like 79. Most of our schooling was without any influence with the Department of Education, and they haven't done much. They don't have anything to do with curriculum. They have to do with promoting basically DEI, I think. And it's just a useless organization. You take all that money, funnel it out to the states, let them take care of it. And if the states can't handle it, they should be pushing it down to the local levels.
Yeah, it should be education should be a more local issue. And then the only reason to have a national one is you find out who's educating the kids the best and try to find that model and to spread that model around. But it doesn't take a budget to do that. It takes people with common sense.
That's not even their goal right now. They have nothing to do with the curriculum. Yeah. I do know this. When we went to school and we learned math, everybody learned math the same way. And you just kept working on it until you could do it. Some people couldn't get it at first, but since we all knew how to do it one way, we could all help each other and know if somebody was doing it wrong, you could help them out. By the time my kids were going to school, they were teaching a different method every week. And I think there was a total of 7 different methods they would teach. So when the kids came home, they had these dots they had to connect or squares they had to count, or I couldn't help them at all. And it didn't make any sense why you would do that. And then what they're trying to do is, well, not everybody learns the same way. So you should, make sure that they all can learn the same way. Well, or find a way to learn. Well, that's not the way it has to work. Everybody can learn. It's not that hard. Maybe you can't do advanced math, but I don't think you're going to be doing advanced math by counting squares and circles and things. So Department of Education, no, not needed. We need to save, we're $30 trillion in debt.
Yeah.
We need to get out of debt. All right, let's kind of wrap up with 2 different items. One is, I kind of want to keep a tally of this every week. What are some things that we're not talking about or not in the media that maybe should be? I think the first one is, I like to bring this up a lot, Jeffrey Epstein client list.
Yeah.
Not one person has ever been charged, investigated, or anything except for Ghislaine Maxwell, who was put into jail for basically human trafficking or prostitution.
Basically, yeah.
To who? Who was the clients? Who were the victims? And his personal assistant. No, I'm sorry, Harvey Weinstein. His personal assistant was Leslie Headland. She was given full control of a $230 million Disney Star Wars project with absolutely no experience. What does Leslie Headland know that got her that job?
Right.
Here's something I haven't heard of a lot of is, didn't a helicopter fly into the back of an airplane last week? Where's the news on that? Have you heard anything? I haven't heard hardly anything on that.
No, they really haven't talked. They've talked about the victims, but they haven't really talked about there's a lot of conspiracy theories going around. So right now they're just in investigation phase. So I can see a little bit of quiet time on it. But
when has the news ever been shy about just making stories and going back and dredging it up over and over again? This one seems to have just gotten lost in the bucket.
Right, and it goes, then there was another one right after that, the medical plane down in Philadelphia.
Right.
That seemed to go away relatively quickly.
That thing went down like a missile too. That was scary.
Yeah. So, once the Super Bowl is on, I guess
everything's done.
We're back to Kelsey and Taylor Swift, and that's more important.
Another one, January 6th bomber. There was somebody during the January 6th protest 4 years ago that planted bombs around DC. They have images of this person, and nobody has ever been arrested for it. Keep in mind that they got a lot of people that were January 6th protests. They went out and tracked them down. They spent the last 4 years tracking down people that merely walked around the public office. There's a public, the house. We own that house. And they walked around it and didn't destroy anything. And they went after those people. But they can't find somebody who planted bombs. That seems a little weird. I'd like to hear more about that. There's also do you remember the Las Vegas shooting?
Yes. Yeah. A lot of people died in that one.
Yeah. Guy shooting, carried hundreds of pounds of ammunition up to his room by himself, knocked out a window, did it all himself. And there's nothing being talked about with that.
No explanation of why he did it.
Right.
Trump. How about the cocaine in the White House?
Ah, yes, the cocaine in the White House. Now that Trump probably has all that information, he could release it.
Yeah.
Kind of small potatoes, but at the same time, this BS that they don't know who it was.
Yeah,
that's got to go.
Most secured building in the world.
Right. The Trump assassinations. What's happening with that? I don't know anything about that kid. Why he did it? Why did he have so many cell phones? What's the layout? They haven't done any background. I mean, just gone. I mean, they actually shot him, and there's nothing in the news about it. He's moved on. I obviously understand that. And he wasn't killed or seriously wounded. But I don't see any of the investigative reporting that you'd think you'd see on all this stuff.
Right.
And the last thing is the SCOTUS leak. So the Supreme Court leaks, remember when that happened? That was about 2 years ago?
Roe v. Wade.
Yeah. So where's the person that's doing that? Now, I know there's been somebody leaking information about the ICE agents coming, and I think they've tracked down who that is. So there might be some arrests coming, and I would appreciate seeing that.
Yeah.
If somebody's tipping off people when ICE is going to get there, sure, they may leave, or they may bunker in and kill a lot of agents sometime. And that's going to be on the person that's leaking that information just as much as the people doing the killing.
Our Minnesota representative Ilhan Omar,
Yeah.
she's been tipping off ICE agents or the illegals to how to deal with the ICE agents, but she's claiming through her lawyer that it's all legal. She can do that.
Oh, well, isn't that nice? It's legal. It's also moral, right?
Yeah. Well, we've realized lately the morality of the Democrat Party. So
Right.
they're against they're against keeping Minnesota safe.
Yeah, it's true.
And we've heard, we hear every single time something happens, if when they want something, if we could save just one life,
Yeah.
it would be worth it.
Right.
And now we're not hearing that statement anymore. So
not so much.
The Republicans are trying to do something to make Minnesota safer, but I guess not. And it's the same with the Democrats banning the SROs at school and making that a horrible situation. So
right. So I'm gonna end on something that's completely not political, but it just caught my attention. Oxford University, and I would show this website, but it is cancer. The dailymail.co.uk. It's got so many ads, it's disgusting.
Yeah.
But University of Oxford successfully teleported logical gates, the basic components of a computer algorithm, between two quantum processors separated by more than 6 feet. What that means is what used to be a massive machine that had to be hard linked together could be shared across computers that are completely separated from each other. And that also means that it is a baby step into actual teleportation. It's physical. It's very cool stuff.
Yeah.
There's more to come with this. I will tell you this, that quantum machines, when they are finally mainstream or able to be used, will cause all of our security software we have, everything that we've done encryption with, completely obsolete. Like everything you've encrypted up to this point will be able to be decrypted in seconds. And that's the power and the scariness of quantum machines.
Yeah, we definitely need the government to get a handle on that, but there isn't anyone bright enough in our government right now to really be able to control any of that. So
we'll see. We'll see what the Doge team does after they're done with their cost-cutting efforts. Maybe they'll go into this, because I know Trump wants to go into AI, and I think this is a very close step to AI.
Yeah, and I think they've got the right team there to do it. So
yep. I'll just mention this right before we go. I saw a video by Elizabeth Warren talking about the Doge team, and the way she said it was, we've got 19 and 20-year-olds doing this, and the way she said it, just the complete contempt for anybody who's that age.
Right.
When she's 76 and still in her position, maybe she should just sit down on this one. You know, if you start looking at the founders of the country, a lot of them were like 20s, 30s. It's good to see people who are smart and capable. Maybe they're not setting policy, they're doing the work. Yeah, right. We want the older people, and I'm not talking 80-year-olds, I'm talking about younger people, but we want the the older people to be doing policy, but there's nothing wrong with having a young person doing work and learning so they can become the leader that we need them to be too. But what contempt. My God, she hates younger people.
Right. Yeah, they've been showing some of her past things, and she's I don't know how she got elected. So
There's a few people that I question. How did they get elected?
right.
All right. And I know how I didn't get elected, so what do I know? On that, I don't think I have anything else. You got anything else to wrap up with?
Nothing that's really. I think we got most everything covered. So
All right. Well, I hope if anybody listened to this, I hope they liked it or at least had some fun with it. If they stuck around this long, thanks for doing that. If you can, like and subscribe to the channel. If you've got comments, leave them on the in the comment section, or get a hold of us if you know us, and we'll do this all again next week.
yeah, we'd be glad to see anyone. If you have any questions that we can answer, shoot them through, and we'll take care of them.
Yeah, if anybody wants to sit in on one of the sessions too, let us know, and we'll talk beforehand. And even if it's not the whole session, if you want to partake in part of it, that'd be great. If you're a sitting representative or senator and you want to be on this show, more power to you. We'll have you on. I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican.
We're here for information.
Yep. All right. Until next Thursday at 7 Central, this is Sean.
I'm Dave.
And we will see you next week.